so much.
Did you get my email about why I was coming over?
I just got and said that you weren't here.
Yeah.
But I didn't go into I just saw the top line. Should I have gone in?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't get interested.
No, I got that, but I just didn't read it here. I just saw that you were not able to come, that you weren't feeling well or something. Okay. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
And then our groups presented the check.
Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. So welcome back. Let me talk about some of the things. Today is Wednesday, November 29th. So we can think about it. We have an exam scheduled for Wednesday, the 13th. All your labs due December 20th. On the labs, you're required to do all labs from, that we've talked about. They should be, you wanna go back to all your other labs, like we talked about before, and give, short descriptions. And then what I'd like you to do as well, as you can even do it in the beginning of the labs, you can put it in, or at the end of it, is what's the purpose and of the labs, and the why would you use it. That should be in all of your labs. You should have your names on your labs. Put it in the folders and upload it to the audit area. I'm going to make the ethics chapter, chapter 3, I'm going to make it available. And on, let me just go back here to the labs. So the labs go from those of you that want, I think that Toomey wanted to do some of the Linux labs. I didn't know, but he's not here, right? So you can check with him if he wants to do some of the things. So you should be able to do these the labs, you can use it starting from 3.0 and it should go all the way to 22. So today I have, Natasha, did your group have a presentation today or
I don't think so. I wasn't here Monday.
Oh, okay.
Last
And then
week.
the last one you did was what?
I would have to check.
Okay, so go ahead and check. And what's the situation with your group? What-
We have 3.18 today.
Of the VPNs and
Yes.
remote access?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what did you have? What other group?
We're group 5, we had 322.
322 of the malware?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you were having the 320, but you wanted to delay that? Okay. And what were you assigned, Jesse?
We had 319.
319, the digital certificates.
Yeah, but we couldn't do that one because we needed to be issued a CA.
Oh, okay.
And,
You didn't have, okay. So we can, for the virtual private network, so we can't do, okay, so we have 321. So Jesse, you were gonna, I asked you very kindly, you were gonna do a forensics lab, are you prepared for that, for today?
yeah, the only issue is that the hex editor is like a program, and I don't know if you want to download that. I don't know how long it's gonna take.
Or you wanna put it on your machine?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can hook up to your machine. You wanna
What
do
about-
that, or you wanna tell everybody what they need to download, and then maybe everyone else
It's
can go?
it's in my Blackboard.
Okay, so we'll start with yours then,
Okay.
okay? So let me go to the audit area, so everybody, on the machines, let's go to the audit area of BTE 535 audit. Okay, and under course documents, in your group 2,
Yeah. And you can go to forensics labs.
okay, in forensics labs, and then you want to
Yeah.
go to hex editor first?
Yeah, so that'll take you to the website, which is a link to the hex editor, but as a disclaimer, this one's kind of buggy. And what I found out like earlier today is that if you have Notepad++, the hex editor plugin in that works a lot better.
So you wanna use your machine, you wanna show what you've done, or,
Yes,
Ye-
it's fine.
yeah, let's do it from there. We'll work as a team. So let's see, what you want. We can give an overview of,
I just have to issue
of what?
issue.
Mine. Let's see if I can- this one, it's not- I think this is mine. Can you hook up?
Yeah, if you have the- I think it's nice. It's quick. I think that's me.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's you. Okay, yeah, that was real quick. Okay.
Alright, so essentially what I did for this one, it's a steganography lab. What steganography is it's like the art of hiding information within a digital picture. So this one's fairly simple. So we have right here, if this will open. Alright, let's make this quick. So this is a JPG file, which is pretty much any like image file that you can see on the internet. That's the extension for that. And what was done with this file is that pretty much any file, photos or anything else is just a collection of data. They have memory addresses and things like that. For some reason my photo viewer doesn't work, so, but, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So if you were to open this file, like say someone sent it to you or you downloaded it or anything like that, it would download it and it would come up like this. But the file has actually been edited, so at the end of the actual JPG, there's extra data in that, and that can be a way that hackers or anyone else can like send extra things and download stuff onto your computer, just by you opening an image file. So one way that people that are in forensics, I did one of these during my internship, but a way that you can check for image files to make sure that the JPG doesn't have anything extra added on them is running them through a hex editor.
So this has been, so this is a regular JPEG file that has been
Yes.
edited, and supposedly there's, that if you're not sure that there's suspicious, that there's any data that you don't want, that you wanted to a clean JPEG file that hasn't been touched. Is that basically it?
Correct. Yeah, so like I said, the initial hex editor that I had, it doesn't have a search function, which would make this really difficult. So the way that you would check this is you would drop the JPEG into Notepad++, which is just a simple
Yeah.
text editor.
Okay.
And then there's a plugin that's the hex editor. I'm not going to show you guys how to download that, but the plugins are up here. You go to the manager, and it's just called hex editor. It's this H up here. So right now it just looks like a bunch of garbage. But then once you run it through the hex editor, it'll show you the memory address, all of the hex. This is in hexadecimal, but it's pretty much all of the bytes of data that are within this JPEG. And it's a lot of stuff, but basically the terminating bit or the terminating group of bytes for a JPEG is FFD9. And that's basically what that means is that the actual JPEG file, like what you'll see visually, all of the memory address that is allocated to that ends at FFD9 in the memory. So what you can do is you can search for FFD9. There's two over here. So the last FFD9 will be the end of the actual JPEG file. But as you can see here, there's a little bit of data left over afterwards. So everything
So,
after,
so they found two or they found one?
there's two of them, but the one up top is just like a throw.
Yeah,
so.
okay,
So the one, so it'll, and you can just trust that the one at the bottom is like the actual end of the file because it needs all the data to actually render, the picture. So this one's at the end, so from everything after the FFD9 is like the extra data that was added on by whoever was maliciously trying to do whatever. So from here, now you know where the end of the JPEG is, and then you know that everything else at the end of it, is the extra data. So then if you wanna like be able to read whatever data there is within that, I don't have the command on my, PC, it's a Linux command, but it's called DD, which is copy and convert. But I wrote the command for you guys. So essentially what this is, what's on the end of it, as you can see here, it's like super secret flag. So this is actually for a capture the flag event. So this is like the flag that you would be getting, is in a .zip file. So you can see the name of it here. So what you would do, whether it be for like a capture the flag or if you actually needed to get the data, is you would take this and you would go to your terminal. You go to your terminal, and like I said, DD is a Linux command, but basically what you would do is DD if, example, and I'll explain what the extra flags are. So basically the if is just the file that you're gonna run the command through, and then VS is block size, so that's the size of the data that you'll be running through. So in the memory address, it'll just run one block at a time. But as you guys can see, there's a lot of blocks, so you can skip to the actual like block of data where we know that it ends. But the only thing with DD is that it runs in decimal, not hexadecimal. So this is the terminate. So basically where the FFD9 is, that's hexadecimal. So all you have to do is convert that to decimal, which is just not simple math, but it's math. But I didn't feel like doing that in here, so I saved it over here. So that value is so that's FFD9. That copy. So that will skip directly to that block of data. And then at the end, you would just write OF, which is out file, and then you would name it whatever you want. And then you run this command, and it will pretty much chop everything above, everything that's the JPEG file, and then it'll just spit out a zip file that has the data that was extra. And then you can check and see whatever that is. But like I said, it's not going to run online, it's not a PC. But yeah, that's it.
so this was used basically, and so you would use it, so how would you use it in a forensic way? If you were doing an examination of looking at somebody's computer, you're gonna take all their JPEG files and look for extra data, or you're just saying that when you get a file and you wanna make sure that you're suspicious of the file? What would you
What I was told, I didn't do a lot of forensics in my internship,
Right.
but it's a cryptic way to like communicate between people. So if you think someone's like hiding information,
Okay,
when they're just sending like pictures back and forth between each other,
okay.
this is how they would actually get the data that would have whatever.
Okay, so so your suspicion is on that file,
Yeah.
where you would use it. Right, and it would be in a way in which you can incorporate it into another, almost a batch of other, programs that you could use. Okay, all right. Okay. And so, and what did you, which one did you have then, William, your group?
3.18.
3.18, which is the virtual private network?
VPN and remote access.
Okay.
I have a PowerPoint in the audit
Okay,
area.
so you wanna come and do that, or you wanna use it? You
Sure.
wanna use it in here, or what, or as documents?
Yeah, it's just right in the folder
And then
Yeah,
in group
group one.
one,
at the very end.
18. Okay. talk about it?
Sure.
So Mark, you wanna come to, or William's gonna, you're gonna get William to do it, or what? Okay. So, do you wanna,
Alright, so lab 3.18 dealt with virtual private networks and remote desktop access, and the purpose was to demonstrate a secure method of remote access, and VPNs ensure your connection is secure and private.
So to give a small little introduction on what a VPN is, it's basically an alternative way for people to connect to the internet.
So step one of the lab.
so why would they use that?
Well, it's more secure than using Wi-Fi
Public,
from
yeah.
a public.
Because it's a
from a
private
public-
connection.
Okay,
So step one of the lab wanted us to connect to a VPN. They wanted us to use VPN Connect, which is a built-in Microsoft feature, but we decided to use the school's VPN using Pulse Secure.
okay,
So you can access that by going to remote.miami.edu. You'll be asked to install the Pulse Secure application in your browser, and you just go through all of the steps, hit allow on everything. Grant your permission.
so everyone has access to
Yeah,
this?
everyone is access to it.
So if you go, can you go back up a couple? Okay, so all they have to do is just do
Remote.miami.edu.
remote, and they need to have their credentials?
Yes. Yes, or you have to sign in with your Canlink credentials.
Okay.
It'll take you to that screen.
Okay, so they're using Pulse Secure.
Mhm.
So the university basically purchased this Pulse Secure, and we're using it as a standard for
Yes.
their remote?
Mhm.
Okay,
And so that page lets you know that you're connected, along with an icon on the bottom right corner of your screen that shows your connections, as you can see right there. It says the UM1net is connected. So that's how you connect to the school's VPN. And part two wanted us to use remote desktop access to remotely access another computer. So we decided to use the business school server. We just remotely access the business school server through remote desktop connect.
okay.
And that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you just took a picture from
Yeah.
the screen?
Yeah, I mean, it was easier that way.
Cause you get the, do you get that glare, cause that's from the screen or from the, that's
Yeah,
the,
that's from the screen.
from,
Yeah, the glare from the light,
Yeah.
what?
the glare from the light reflecting.
Yeah.
The glare from this light or glare when you
No,
took a picture?
there's one in the picture. So-
Okay, so maybe just go back and just take another,
Okay. I will.
take a regular screenshot rather than from your camera,
Yeah.
right? Cause you
So-
really can't see that.
Mhm. You just have to open the start menu and type remote desktop connection. You'll open it and you'll get a screen like that on the right. And you see that screen, you have to type in the name of the computer that you want to access. So I typed in the name of the business school server.
Okay,
Then you'll be prompted to enter the login information, the credentials that you use to access the computer. So I entered my business school credentials.
okay,
Cut out.
And
Right.
there, you're in.
okay, so do the same thing
Mhm.
of capture, and then I'm in, and then, so now, as if it were my own,
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Now the two computers are able to, are connected to each other in a much safer way than.
Yeah, and you can just access files or anything on the hard drive on the desktop remotely when you're not there.
okay,
That is lab 3.18.
okay, great. So just go back and, correct those pictures, get some screenshots.
Okay.
So what are some other ones? Instead of, so you use, so for the remote, you use what? You use
Just the built-in Windows remote
the
desktop
built-in
connection. Mhm.
Windows one. And what is, in your, what do you guys use? to
That's
do
what we use.
remote? What?
That's what we use.
You use that one
Mhm.
also? This is, okay. All right, so what other group then is presenting?
Group 5 is,
Group 5,
if there's anyone.
okay.
So low.
So who's,
No, I mean, other groups.
okay, so which one is it, which one?
322.
322? put your, in this lab, put your name on it.
So for this lab, we had to install, it was this, kind of, we had to install Spybot, but I was using a Mac, so there was an alternative, it's called Mac Booster. So for the first step, we installed Mac Booster, and this is the first thing that pops up. Also,
So where do you say that? What did you install?
Mac Booster.
It says it over
What?
there.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Okay, well, the purpose of Lab 3.22 is to use tools to develop and look for and remove bots or programs that spy on your activities and send your private information out to others.
Okay.
And for part A, this is malware prevention and detection, search and destroy. So we installed Mac Booster, and the goal is to just clean up any malware that we find and do a scan. So here is Mac Booster. The next step, you go to Security Center, and then I clicked scan. All you have to do is press scan, and it found 43 security issues.
On your lap?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So there's, for malware removal, it was fine, system configuration, virus scan, and well, there's 43 issues under malicious cookies. So here I just explain, and here's the actual image of the kind of ads and pop-ups that it considers like malicious files. And I tried to press fix, but then you have to download the premium, so I didn't do that. And then I just did a whole system-wide cleanup, which means it gets rid of any like temporary files or anything that you don't need. It actually thought Mac Booster was, well, never mind. That's the next. The next antivirus software actually found the other one to be a virus. Yeah, Malwarebytes thought Mac Booster was a virus.
Right. That's how they get each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay, so.
And it may be.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
You know, from it's
It
almost
was
like
pretty-
Kaspersky and so forth, right? That they have all this other code that you never know, so you never know who to trust.
So, part B is malware prevention and detection with Malwarebytes. So, I had no problem installing Malwarebytes for the Mac because they already have that available. And our goal here is to install Malwarebytes, perform a quick scan, and remove any malware.
Mm-hmm.
So here is what pops up when you install Malwarebytes. So we installed it, and then the next step, we did a full scan. And here's where it actually thinks that Mac Booster is a virus. So there's Mac Booster 3, Mac Booster, see all these files, which are all related to Mac Booster. And, like the lab told me, I pressed remove selected items because I had already used Mac Booster at this point. So it got rid of it. And then just to make sure, we did a second scan, and all the threats were removed according to Malwarebytes. So now I'm actually thinking Mac Booster is a virus. Now I'm actually thinking that. Because it asks for a premium for you to pay and put in your information. Yeah, so it may have been a virus. Now, part
And it depends on where you download it too from.
Oh, it was sketchy. Yeah, it
Gee,
was sketchy.
and it'd be interesting to use another software to see if you get the same results. So add it to your lab if using another one, because it may be or
Yeah.
something.
I should do that. Okay, so part C, we had to install Firefox and then install AdBlock Plus. So the goal of the lab is to install AdBlock Plus and then navigate through it and play with some settings. So here we installed Firefox and then installed AdBlock Plus, and we also went on some random site, just like the lab. We just went on Cengage.com, and you can see here that there's apparently 2 ads on this page, and that it's blocking. And if you go into options, it doesn't really allow you to do that much. Besides, you can block websites from tracking you, and you can just add in like whitelisted websites or anything that you want to allow. You can also disable it. So it was quite different from the lab since it's like updated version.
Yeah, you can also disable it just for the page or for the entire domain if you choose to do so. Because I use it for Chrome, same thing.
It worked the same way.
Yeah, so
And what was your opinion of it?
I think it works really well. I've been using it for the past like year or two,
Yeah.
and it works really well.
And when you think about the tracking, you don't realize how many people are tracking
Yeah.
you all the time.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
That's it.
what I would add to your lab is go back
And
and,
the
and
first part.
right, do the first part. And then put your names on the top of who worked on this,
All right.
okay? So we're set. Okay, so we've completed, the one password circumvention. So what was the issue here, Mona? Did all of it work, and none of it worked, or where did you get stuck?
In part A.
In part A? Okay, and did you do part B?
Part of it, not all.
Okay. And then, okay. Let me go back to the group. So, Natasha, then,
Yes, ma'am.
so for,
The last lab we did was 3.12.
okay, so, and so for your group then, so do, 320 as well. Is there, for
Wednesday or
Monday?
Monday?
What?
Wednesday or Monday?
Well, let's try for Monday. Let's try for Monday with your group for, lab 320. And then that work in conjunction, and then if you have some issues there. And if you have problems, then you can do the presentation, and if you have problems, try to do a workaround, okay, for, 320. Okay. And then what I wanna do is for Monday as well, 2 things. Under the, let me go back to security. And go to under the Osaka materials. you should have gone over section 4, which was security of network system, process controls. And section 5, which was incident responses. Let me just go here to incident responses. You need to know the difference between, what's going on here? The difference between event versus incident. And what's the difference? What's the difference between an event versus an incident? What do you think? What do you think?
An incident would be a one-time thing, whereas an event would have more catastrophic events, like something that would be.
Well, what they're defining is an event is something that occurred, and an incident is usually something malicious, some type of incident that you have to report. When we're talking about anything that's disruptive, anything that needs to be discovered, that's what they call an incident. An incident versus event are just operations that are happening. A lot of times they're used synonymously, but they do have different meanings when you're dealing with incidents. So when they talk about cybersecurity related incidents, when the NIST that develops these relationships, what they have is dealing with not only event management but incident, is they have to be documented. And they divide it up into this figure where they talk about attack vector taxonomy. Is here they're talking about where it's coming from. Many times it's unidentified, many times what you can see here, it's unknown, but there have come, things like from phishing or from, it could be web related or it could be physical, like we talked about. It's leaving me here, huh? It's like I have a ghost here. I have some kind of virus, right? That we talk about the physical aspects as well. The loss or theft of the equipment, where we're talking about, or any other attack. So many of the software here have you documented along with, when they talk about the United States CERT, is allowing you here. So this has been this part of basically deciding what it was the incident, what's the type, and what's the examples, to have that documented. So I want you to go through this incident response phases, because this has to be documented along the way of not only preparation, but after the detection is how it's going to be contained, how it's going to be eradicated in post-incident. And there should be some kind of alerts, because if you think about like the Equifax example, is many times they had problems but nobody was alerted to that this wasn't done. So it has to be software related and built in. So you can see why do you need that incident responses, go through this, and basically what there needs to be when they talk about forensic examinations, a lot of times forensic examinations are done with the specifics that there may be legal aspects done. People do this for legal liability investigations. Anybody know if there's anything like a forensic team here at UM? There is. And basically what they do, and I'll have them come in, is they basically come in and do forensic work and basically have you not deal with your computer, but they make a clone of the hard drive, and so that later on that you cannot say, you know, that was never on my computer. And Natasha, they can say, you know, that wasn't on my computer, right? Somebody else put that in, they're making a clone, and they're doing basically like CSI work. You know, when they're doing that investigation, and then they have to prepare, many of these people actually go to court and prepare these investigations, just like they were doing with the FBI. So that evidence preservation is done, just like they're doing, there's a number of ways on how to access that information, the legal requirements on, especially is that your computer, sometimes they need warrants, but if it's the person's, the university's computer, someone else, you can think about it. And those stages then, you can see the main stages here, consideration is, much of it is similar to what you're doing in any cybersecurity of identifying, analyzing, and presenting, but here what the key here is that you have to preserve. And the presentation is usually just not to higher management, but you may think you may need to present it to legal authorities, you may have to present it even to courts. Some people in computer forensics actually are expert witnesses, but they do this, there's quite a bit of money in that, you know, per hour, in working with attorneys, identifying, preserving. You see here's the key, here's preserve of those. And then that data acquisition, here's the idea of imaging, the process obtain a bit by bit copy. There's a number of these, they can do hardware and software, extracting that. And then you can see here, doing individuals, even of the individuals of these, ingestion, reporting, network analysis, log file analysis, and these are some of the tools. Some of these acquiring mobile devices that they have, the network, the timelines, and they have anti-forensics to make it impossible for investigations to retrieve information. So the other side knows it, so they make sure that they securely delete the data. They overwrite metadata, they encrypt their data, protocols, they hide it with another, what you were talking about. So yours was on the other side, and then they had on topic 5 was disaster recovery and business continuity. So what I'd like to do for Monday, after going through this, is I'm going to give you in-class practice quiz for this material to prepare for the class. So in order for preparing, what I suggest is you go through the CSX. You can go and we'll do a practice quiz in the class. And then you can, probably in all the sections then, you can look at some of these knowledge checks, and then I'll give you some that will prepare you not only to sit for this CSX, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, but we'll do a practice quiz on that on Monday. Okay? And now that you know that you need to do, even though I see most groups just did the labs that they were assigned, you need to go back and do all the labs by the end of the semester. Okay. And then in terms for the assignments, you have the quizzes, and then I'll just put, on Monday, I'll put up, 9, and the quiz for 9 and 10. Yes.
So what chapters will the exam on December 13th be on?
The exams will be those chapters that we didn't cover for the first one. First one, we did 1 through 5 and 11.
So 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12?
Mhm.
Okay. And which sections for the quiz on Monday?
And
4 and 5?
the quiz on Monday will cover then the sections for, the cyber security fundamentals.
Alright, which ones? Topic 4 and 5?
Yeah,
Okay.
topics 4 and 5.
So exam is,
7, 8, 9, 10, and 12.
thank you,
Mhm.
7, 8, 9, 10.
And I'll go over the open-ended, next week I'll go over the open-ended questions for you too, so there'll be no surprises. Okay. And we'll do,
Anything from Misaka on the exam?
what?
Anything from?
Yeah, I'll go over that next week, yes, I will do. Mainly focusing on 4 and 5. Sections 4 and 5, and I'll prepare you for next week, on Monday, I'll
7,
prepare
8,
you
9, 10, and
for 4. Okay, so I'll prepare you for that on 4 and 5. And I have a quiz on the ethics, but I'm not going to test you on, ethics, because if I look at from the book, let me go back. Course documents, slides. The only part that I like to do view is, this, a lot of these computer laws have, changed, so you can skip, this part. But look at this one, was, the 10 Commandments. This is the only part in chapter 3. I don't wanna ask the questions, what's the 1996 law and the 2003 law, because it changes all the time. I don't care about that. But what I'd like you just to be able to understand are the computer ethics, what they're requiring from people. Some of these should be, right, if you're working in any environment, computer to harm other people, interfere, shouldn't be snooping around other people's files, computers to steal, use the computer to bear false witness, copy or use proprietary software for which you've not paid for. Here is without authorization, thou shalt not appropriate other people's intellectual output. Thou shalt think about the social consequences of the program you're writing or system you're designing, and thou shalt always use a computer in ways to ensure consideration and respect. So these areas, and then it's interesting, on the unlicensed PC software installations, the rates of unlicensed software, where do you think is the least? Unlicensed is, you can see here, it's it's interesting, North America, where's the most? If you had this pick, where would you think? Where do you think would be the most unlicensed software installations?
Also in the
Yeah, I thought it would be America.
We're the cleanest,
Surprising.
right? A lot of times where do you think? Asia. A lot of times they used to call it one disc societies, where they had one disc and they passed it around. So it's the idea, it's a cultural difference. So it's interesting, the rates of unlicensed software. And you would think it would be, see, if you looked at the trends from 2009, 2015, the United States, it's interesting, went from 21% down to 17%. And Asia, you would, and what are other ones? And you can see here, Latin America went from 63 to 55, so it went down. Middle East, 59 to 57, not so much down, but anyways, 35 to 28%. Worldwide, 43 to 39, but look what happened in Asia Pacific. It even went up. So you think when people are doing it, so it's interesting by knowing it. So you think that we are, but in terms of the cost, you can see that partly you can see that you have it. So in terms of ethics and education here, the whole idea of unethical versus illegal, the difference is codes of ethics of professional organizations, and these are the codes you see of the three organizations. Here's a SOC in the middle that we were focusing in on the auditing. So ACM was the code of ethical, and then also there's an organization called Information Systems and Security Organization, right, that provides then the education on both those aspects, along with some other ones of SAMS and also in ISQ. These are other security organizations that have certifications that they go through. So and here's just on the key elements. So for chapter 3, I would just focus, I would just, in reading that, I would just focus in on the ethical part, but I'm not going to ask you questions on the exam about laws per se, since they're changing so often. So that's on chapter 3. And then chapter 11 we went through before, and chapter 12 on the maintenance area is the whole idea that people don't think about it, is after they plan it, their risk assessment, it has to be an ongoing basis. And this is where people get lazy. This is where people get in their way of not maintaining it. They do it once and that's it. And this is where planning, then the risk assessment, what's my vulnerability, where's my remediation. And what tends to be, what people are doing is they are doing it like a once a year type of thing, only when they're having to comply where they're doing the external audits. They're also having to apply like a PCI environment or Graham banking environments where they have to do it. And when they think about security training and awareness, if it's not mandated except for the state of New York, they tend not to do it as much. Or when they get hit, that's when they will end up doing that. So you can see, everybody hear about Uber? What happened there? Yes, no?
No.
Type it in, go
They
into
got it
Google.
hacked recently.
Yeah.
Well, they've been
Oh,
hacked
they
all
didn't tell
over the
anybody,
year,
right?
but they've been keeping it
Yeah.
secret.
Security breach, right? Cost here, here's one. Uber says 2.7 million in the UK were affected, right? Washington State is suing Uber over the data breach. Uber's not what we know now, right? At the time of the breach, Uber paid the hackers $100,000 to destroy the data. Can you imagine? They paid them, and do you know if they did it? No clue. It's, you can't even fathom that there was no proof. Show me the proof, right? I take the money and run, right? What is this business? So you can think about their idea of what they had to clean up and then how long it took. Hid the data breach. This is just amazing. When you look at Uber hid the 2016 breach, paying hackers to delete the stolen data. And it's amazing to think about it that and in this case, this was just in that UK, but in this case, disclosed that how many people have taken an Uber? It's like, no, it's the idea. Uber disclosed Tuesday that hackers had stolen 57 million driver and rider accounts, and they kept it. And they basically say the two hackers, and I don't know, the security officer has been fired. This is good, right? So the security officer has been fired. The Travis, who was was the former chief executive. He was forced out in June. And the two hackers stole data about the company's riders, drivers, including phone numbers, email addresses, names, from a third-party service, and then approached Uber and demanded $100,000 to leak their copy of data. And Uber acquiesced in the demands, and then one-third, the company tracked down the hackers and pushed them to sign a non-disclosure agreement, according to the people familiar. To further conceal the damage, Uber executives also made it appear as if the payout had been part of the bug bounty, a common practice in which they pay hackers to attack their software and tests. So isn't that great? So they put it in their book as if they were like ethical hackers. You know how you have the white hat and the black hat? And it was, remember that group there that they say they go and they hack for no companies. So they made it as
found
if,
the hackers?
huh?
They found them?
No, they called it bug bounty. So they had to put in their books, what am I paying $100,000 for, right? They have a number of investors, right? So they have to so they got $100,000, these executives, they have to write, what is it for? So they said, I wrote it for what they call bug bounty. That basically they made it as if I'm hiring white hacker, I'm hiring a firm to bug me. What? Right, but I guess it's a way in which they were getting so many millions, this company, right? That it was stupid. A lot of things they did in their behavior, right? But a common practice, and the details remain hidden until Tuesday, right? And they held it for the two breaches, right? The breach at Uber is far the most serious exposure of sensitive customer information. The two breaches that Yahoo announced in 2016 eclipsed Uber's in size and attack disclosed in September, right? But the handling of the breach underscores the extent to which Uber executives were willing to protect the $70 billion reputation. So they got $70 billion in terms, even in the potential cost. Was chosen as known and what happened. And then what are they saying? The revelation was kept quiet, renewed questions, and they kept it quiet for over a year. The breach was also a black mark for Mr. Sullivan, right? And unlike many security executives, so this was the security executive. Mr. Sullivan joined Uber as the company's first security officer in 2015 after serving the head of security at Facebook for 7 years. So they hired this guy from Facebook for 7 years, right? They made him the first chief security officer in 2015. And unlike many cybersecurity executives, Mr. Sullivan was previously a lawyer and had studied, look at this, where did he study?
For you.
You didn't know that, right? He began his career in the technology as a federal prosecutor during the terms, right? And it was funny, I went to, where was it? Yeah. UM 2 years ago, in 2015, had a security conference here. Anybody remember that? If you were here 2 years ago. And our former CIO, our former Chief Information Security Officer that's no longer here, he organized it. It was a great event. And he called me and he said, you know who we're getting as a speaker? A guy. He says, and he was so excited. Because, you know, they were a UM alum, right? That's the head of security in Uber. So I don't know. Decision to join, right? And this is the way, so you can see the decision to join Uber has a win for the company, right? A decision as Uber ranks the drivers, Uber had faced complaints about driver ride was tasked with keeping drivers safe. Who was fired alongside Mr. Sullivan was Craig Hart, the company's legal director of security and law enforcement. Mr. Sullivan didn't respond. The company's decision to conceal the breach and pay the ransom quickly raised questions about security experts. Many have repeatedly warned companies against paying hackers a ransom to cover up breaches or return stolen data. Advice that was included in the 2016 statement from the FBI, and several states, including California, have laws mandating that companies disclose when a breach are breached. Right? And Uber has experienced breaches before. They had one. The latest breach puts Uber in another misdemeanor tenure. Okay? And Uber has hired former general counselor as an advisor, right? But the damage already been done by demanding that the hackers destroy the stolen data. Uber may have violated a Federal Trade Commission rules on the breach disclosure that prohibits companies from destroying any forensic evidence in the course of their investigation. Remember how we said that you had to preserve? So here, not only did they tell them, go ahead, give them $100,000, write that it's bounty bug, but they may have violated FTC. The company has also violated state breach disclosure laws by not disclosing the theft of the Uber drivers' stolen data. In California, does everyone understand that to disclose, basically, if the data stolen was not encrypted, Uber would have been required by California to disclose the driver's license data from his drivers had been stolen in the course of hacking. Unbelievable. So on that happy note, but isn't that amazing? That I knew this, but I didn't know that it was Mr. Sullivan. It just came back to me when I thought about it, and he was bragging. You should have seen it. It was like, you know, they recorded the sessions, and they said, oh, and he was telling me I couldn't make it. It was one thing, and I still even remember. He said, oh, come to dinner. We're gonna go take him out, and you know, we're gonna. So I wasn't in his milieu, you know what I mean? But it's interesting. So this was his background. He took a cyber
So
law
what does the
class.
FBI say in situations like this with big companies like Uber that do get hacked? To not pay them and just wait it out for them to fix it?
Well, they basically shouldn't be paying you.
Right.
That a lot of companies do that, but you should be doing an investigation. You're just encouraging them, just like anything else, you know, that is basically is extortion, right? And what does that encourage? That I can go to every other company I know that they'll pay me out, and every other company. Some companies are doing it because of hospitals, because they say, you know, we've gotten ransomware out of you, you can't operate. This was not even that they couldn't operate. A lot of times they'll you know, take over your computer, so you're, especially hospitals are vulnerable for it because they don't have good security. So they are almost lax, so they'll basically take over their servers, and in that case, you have surgery, you're the head of the hospital, hey, I got surgery tomorrow, it is life and death, I'll pay him in Bitcoin and I'll go over. This one is they just stole their data, they still could send out their Uber cars. So even intentionally, you don't want to do it, but you're saying, hey, they're in a situation that it would be hard for them to get up and running, I'll go pay them. But that also encourages all those guys around the whole world, and there've even been studies in a lot of hospitals, they'll pay them like $40,000, $50,000. What is that for a hospital if they have to keep on going? One surgery is even, you know, is more than 50,000, so I'll pay them. And that way I almost can contend that these guys don't know what they're doing, but these,
He's like an idiot, he just did it to cover everything up.
it covered up. It wasn't like they couldn't send out their taxis anymore. It wasn't like they froze their software that they couldn't go out, but it's basically they were lax on getting them, and they didn't want to publicize it because they're not a publicly traded company, but they certainly have all those investors. And what kind of idea, you want to take an Uber now? You know, when you think that all your data's out there. Plus, and think about it, you give them all your data. The only thing that it's different is they didn't say that they destroyed, you know, how they have it. But this is also, and then this is a guy that's a lawyer too. So it's not like he can claim, oh, I didn't know what the law was, I didn't know what was happening here. But it's one of ours. He took a cyber law. And you can see what you can see on the flip side, it's such an area now that everybody needs to have a cybersecurity. People aren't trained in it. So a guy that's a lawyer takes one cyber law class, he's already, if he goes out there and if he gives a good talk, right, I need someone, and he worked for Facebook for 7 years before, so he's already there in Silicon Valley. Doesn't that sound good? I'm from Facebook, I'll hire you from this. And if you have no breach, you're fine. You know? Or you don't know about it. So the only thing is, had they not gotten rid of the CEO and brought in a new person to take over, maybe this wouldn't even been found out. So my contention when everybody says, you know, that you find a hack here and there, I think it's much more prevalent. But if, number one, a number of these companies don't even know they're hacked, and you can see how long they delay it when it's just so far out. So one is you don't even know that you're hacked, and those that do, and these guys couldn't even claim that, you know. Well, what could I do? I didn't know it was hacked. You know, you're sitting on your computer, you're working away, you don't know somebody's taken, even if they've taken a copy of your data, what do you know? But these guys intentionally did this. I just wanted to share it with you. And they held it for so long, this thing. And they got the guys. I don't even know how they got the guys. You know, found these two guys. Unreal. Okay. So let's do a practice quiz for Wednesday, and we can go through this.
I thought you said it was Monday.
Yeah, Monday. That's what. Somehow my day.
And the practice quiz on Isaka.
Yeah, on the side, we'll do a practice quiz on Isaka. So that way we'll be prepared. Unreal. Okay, so it's good to know. I didn't even know it. I swear. No, I just read the thing, and then all of a sudden I said, Steve, and I said, God, that name tells me $1 million. See? You were wrong. Hopefully, we'll teach you the ethics here. He forgot to take the ethics class at that law school, right? He took the cyber law class. Yeah, can you be so kind?
For the final labs that are due the 20th, we have to do all of them, but is it just for the group or individually?
You can do it as a group.
Okay, just put our names at the top?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good weekend.
You're welcome.
See you Monday.
Yeah. Thank you.